Here are some of the things that we do to save money on groceries when we're on a budget, and also the ways we prolong the shelf life of our food as well. One of the things we do is we store in mason jars. Usually when you wash and cut your produce, their shelf life is limited to a couple of days. The first thing you do is choose fresh and firm peppers. Look for peppers that are firm to the touch and have a smooth, shiny skin, and avoid peppers that have wrinkles, blemishes, or soft spots because they will not store very well. Next, you just wash and dry your peppers, and I place a paper towel on the bottom to absorb any extra moisture, and this lasts for weeks, up to 3 weeks for myself. And if you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can also do this and it will last for weeks as well. If you don't have access to these jars, you can also use pickle jars, or you could use your spaghetti jars that you get from the store. Just don't throw them away. And to get the smells out, you just use a solution of vinegar and baking soda to get the smells out. I do the exact same thing with my cabbage. I wash it, dry it, and then I put a paper towel in the bottom of the jar, fill it up, put a lid on it, and put it in the fridge. Now I've been storing my produce this way for a while now, way before I got this vacuum sealer. This vacuum sealer just keeps them fresher even longer in the fridge. So, I mean, and who doesn't like to, save money on produce? Because this bag, especially the bagged lettuce, it goes bad so fast. So when you bring it home, you just put it in a bowl, rinse it off, dry it really good, and then put it in a jar and seal it. Now, make sure you put a paper towel in the bottom of your jar or some type of cloth to absorb the moisture, and your lettuce will stay good for weeks. I'm sharing this method because I have wasted a lot of money on vegetables, especially lettuce, that I would buy, and then just a few days after I buy it, it starts turning brown and nasty, and I end up having to throw it out. So this is a great way to extend the life of your produce. Now this one I just had to try because I saw it on a TikTok here a while back and I just couldn't help myself. So what happens to vacuum sealed marshmallows? Under normal conditions, molecules of air from the atmosphere, called atmospheric pressure, are pushing on the outside of the marshmallow. When the vacuum packer removes the air that was once pushing on the outside of the marshmallow, the air trapped inside of the marshmallow pushes out and expands, causing it to get larger. It's just a cool way to preserve your marshmallows, and reports say that this will last for 12 months in your pantry. Plus, I just wanted to say, don't forget to put your vegetables in the fridge. Do not leave them out. This is not going to keep them fresh if you leave them out on your pantry shelves. These have to be refrigerated. The next thing that I do is I'm going to vacuum seal my coffee beans, because do you ever just, when you go and buy a can of coffee and the first time that you open it, the smell is just amazing, but after a while that smell just dissipates after a while? Well, I'm hoping that this will help with that. Plus, it has a longer shelf life. Whole beans can last for up to a year if stored correctly, while ground coffee may lose its freshness within a week or two. Is anybody else noticing that their apples don't last very long that they buy at the grocery store? That's the case with us here in Michigan. Most of the apples that we buy ended up going bad within a couple days. I think they were already bad when we bought them at the store. They've been spraying, I think, a lot of just wax on them to make them look like they're good, but they're really not on the inside. You chop them and they're kind of like brown on the inside. So those ones we're going to get rid of, but the ones that are just soft, I'm going to dehydrate and just make some apple chips. Yeah, apple chips out of it. And previous video that I did, I showed that you could, use all these dry fruits and stuff in your oatmeals, but them dried apples that I had purchased were really expensive. And I'm not sure if it was because it didn't have like a whole lot of additives in it or something, but I have noticed that things that have less ingredients cost more. So today we're just going to, instead of throwing them out or giving them to the chickens or the rabbits, we're just going to dehydrate them and store them on our shelf. Now I'm using my old dehydrator here that works really good, and if you're looking for a really affordable dehydrator for yourself, you can go to your Goodwills or your local thrift market, and a lot of times they will have these on the bottom shelves in most of the stores for very cheap. I think I paid like $5 for the one that I have over here a few years back. You can also dehydrate your fruits and vegetables in your oven as well at around a low temperature between 200 and 220 degrees for about an hour or so, depending on your size of the fruit that you have. Today I purchased 2 10-pound bags of all-purpose flour, and to preserve this I'm going to get some jars washed up and we're going to vacuum seal it. Now when you're cleaning your jars, make sure that you give them a good scrub. I mean, only the outside of these were dirty, but whenever I'm putting food inside of anything, I make sure that they are all scrubbed very well and thoroughly dried. Storing your flour in an airtight plasticware or glass mason jar will keep it fresh for up to 10 months and keeps pests out like flour bugs at bay. If you have the tools to vacuum seal your flour, it can last for up to 2 years. I'm using a 1-cup measurer to see how much flour I'm going to be able to fit into one jar, and total amount of flour I have fit about 3.5 cups per quart jar. Now I did need to tap the bottom of the jar a lot to, so that you can get the flour to settle, and you can fit about 3.5 cups into each jar or more. The best way to store flour for years, up to 10 years, is by using the Mylar bags in buckets. But I do not have any Mylar bags or buckets to use, so I'm just going to be using my vacuum sealer today. Although I really like this vacuum sealing method for jars, this particular vacuum sealer I'm kind of having a bit of an issue with, and I keep having to try to reseal things over and over again. But I wanted to show you guys what it looks like, what it's supposed to look like when it's actually sealing your flour. So did you see it? You see how it rose up and then it will fall back down once it finishes sucking out all the air. I'll show you in real time what it looks like. Wipe the rim just like you would, if you were canning something. Gonna get it like nice and clean so that you have a good seal, and then you're gonna put the lid on top nice and even, and then put the vacuum sealer on top. So for this vacuum sealer in particular, you have to push down really hard, and sometimes you have to do it, probably 3 or 4 times if you don't get it just right. And I really don't care for that feature about this vacuum sealer, so I am on the search for maybe one that is easier to use. We'll see. For two 10-pound bags of flour, we ended up getting 16 quarts of flour at about 3.5 cups each, and that's fine with me. I'm going to put this in a dark, cool place, covered, away from light, and it says that it should last for up to 2 years. The money savings for grinding your own meat are substantial, especially if you are able to stock up on your meat when it's on sale. Pork loin and pork shoulder are two comparable cuts that are worth their weight in gold when it comes to stretching your grocery budget, because you can chop this up yourself and make your own pork chops, your own spare ribs, your own ground pork, and then, make your sausage. Shop your local grocery store circular and wait for meat to go on sale. That's what we do. I have my lovely assistant here, my mother, helping me chop up the meat.
And mom's over here finishing up the bones for me. This is the blade, the shoulder blade that got to cut all the meat off of. And we're gonna save these bones and roast them up and use these for bone meal in the garden. But so far we got, just for 2 of those, we got 3, almost, we got about 2.5 of the gallon size bags. If I had to put it all together, I'd say probably 2.5.
I'd say these are good.
So we're gonna put these in the freezer, and then we'll be back when they are chilled enough to run through the meat grinder.
This is a Huanyu handheld meat grinder that we typically use that we used for years, and we got it off of Amazon for about $120. And this served me just fine for a long time. But you can buy cheaper ones online. These here, I hear, work too, and you can buy these for like $26. If not, you can also just use your food processor. I have done that as well. But we're not going to be using any of these today. We're going to be using this Turbo Force 3000 series 6-in-1 powerful electric meat grinder with foot pedal. And I am excited to use this. I've always wanted an electric meat grinder, and this was gifted to us from Matthew's parents, and we are so grateful because this has come in so handy. Chilling your meat first is very important to prevent any stickage in, or the meat getting stuck inside of the meat grinder. The colder the temperature of the meat, it will help avoid all those issues. So we're going to we're going to use this recipe here as a guideline to make our sausage. It's going to be a country sausage. And I already had majority of the spices on hand to do all this, so I will leave the recipe that I used in the description if anybody wants to learn how to make their own sausage. One thing that I didn't show that I did use in this video was I did also use milk powder as a binder because I didn't have a whole lot of fat on this pork sausage. But you could also use bacon fat, or you can ask your butcher for some lard to add into your sausage to make it more juicy and flavorsome. And it also serves as a binder. Sausages that don't contain enough fat are typically dry and tasteless, so always add some type of a binder or fat to it. If you like a coarse, chunky sausage, then once should be enough for you. But if you prefer a smoother sausage, then you want to grind it at least twice. And I switch out the large grinding plate for the smaller size so that it's more of a finer grind. But it's all just preference. Plus, running it through twice also helps mix up the spices if you're making sausage, or if you're going to make like an Italian sausage, running it through twice works really good too, to blend all them spices. Now with this batch of sausage that we made, we put some maple syrup in there with it, and then we fried some up to try it to see if we liked the taste of it or not. Now this is the part where you really need to try your sausage and make sure that it is to your liking. To save yourself a little bit of time and effort, try it before you bag it up and put it in the freezer. If your sausage is more on the lean side like mine, but I add a little bit of bacon fat when I'm cooking it up, and it helps with browning without burning. Not to mention that it makes it taste amazing. Some of the benefits that you have from grinding your own sausage will be: 1, taste. Your sausage will taste fantastic. And 2, you can add your preferred blend of spices and seasonings. 3 is the cost. The sausage you make yourself will be less expensive than the mass produce sausage. And 4, your health. Your homemade sausage would be better for you. You control the fat and salt content in it. I weigh out my sausage bags in about 1.5 pounds, because that roughly gives me about 6 patties when I want to fry up some patties. Plus, if I just want to use it ground up, that's like the perfect amount. And the rest, for just the ground pork, I'm putting in 1 pound bags, because that will be the most convenient for us, because we split like our ground beef and ground pork together, like when we're making hamburgers or lasagna or any type of like pasta dish. It adds a lot more flavor. It tastes delicious. So the total amount of ground pork that we got was 16 pounds, and of that we used some of it for fine ground pork, we used it for some chunky ground pork, and we used some for breakfast sausage. Our final cost for this ground pork and sausage was roughly around $22 for 16 pounds of ground pork and breakfast sausage. Now I'd like to take the time out to say thank you so much for stopping by and visiting our channel. I hope that you guys learned something valuable today, and please like, share, and subscribe if you like this video. And stay tuned for the next video where we'll be making all of our bread products from scratch.